Hello, and welcome to the How to Choose Happiness and Freedom Show. I'm your host, Lauren Foster, happiness teacher and founder of Be Happy First. As a certified life mastery consultant, masters of wisdom and meditation teacher, and primal health coach, I'm on a mission to help 1 million women learn to be happy and free on purpose, healthy, wealthy, and joyfully living life on your own terms. Happiness is a choice, and you can always choose to be happy first. Thanks so much for being here. Now on to today's episode. Hello, I am beyond excited and a little bit nervous to have my meditation teacher, the man who developed the whole school where I got certified as a meditation teacher, and my personal guru, davidji. Thank you so much for being on the show with me. I'm so honored.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Awesome. So at meditation teacher training, it's kind of like meditation boot camp. You get up in the morning and you're not allowed to speak, not allowed to. When it is very much suggested that we hold things sacred and be silent until after our sunrise meditation. And as we're finishing our meditation, the sun is rising. And then we learned so many things all throughout the day and then ended the day with meditation. And this was after about 11 months, 9 months of online training. I'm trying to remember, but
16 weeks.
16 weeks. So yeah, lots. And I signed up. Like I studied for 11 months trying to get ahead on the reading list. So thank you so much for being here. And so tell our listeners a little bit about who you are and how you came to meditation.
I started meditating when I was in college. It was an experimental Asian studies course. There were 12 of us. We sat in a circle. Our Zen master stood in the corner, and we were instructed to, we would meditate for like an hour, and we were instructed to raise our hands when we had a thought. In his hand, our Zen master carried an 18-inch bamboo stick known as a keisaku, and when we raised our hand to signal that we had a thought pop into our head, he would come over and thwack us on the back. I didn't last in that school of meditation very long, and I found myself really loving the benefits, but not particularly that practice. So I began a whole series of other practices over the years, from candle gazing to mantra, to tantra, to mindfulness, vipassana, chakra meditations, even chocolate tasting meditations. And as I got more involved in the corporate world, I suddenly realized that my meditation was slipping away. And with it slipping away, also balance in my life was slipping away. And so for me, that was like a major, just a little whispering in my head, like, hey, I don't do this thing anymore. And here's my life. My life was very turbulent. I had a sense of emptiness inside. I was working, 16, 18-hour days, 7 days a week in the world of finance. And my heart was just getting emptier and emptier. And then suddenly I realized that I had traded in my morning meditation practice for an early morning train ride to the World Trade Center, and I traded in my evening practice for a glass of scotch. And like that, meditation was gone from my life, and also what was gone was totally balance. And in the wake of 9/11, as I was walking in Lower Manhattan past a row of cardboard boxes that people were living in, I suddenly walked past this one box. This hand reached out, it grabbed my pant leg, and pulled me in, and I gazed into these crystalline blue eyes of this man who then said to me, "What's going to be on your tombstone?" And I call these like butterfly moments, where suddenly everything stops, the traffic stopped, the people stopped. It was like we were the only two people in all of existence. And we shared a little dialogue which seemed like hours. It was probably just a couple of minutes. And when I left him, my knees were weak. Tears were streaming down my face. I had a lump in my throat. I was hyperventilating, and I had to sit down and rest. Like 20 feet down. I couldn't even walk. And that was really like the spark that put me on this journey. After that, I headed off to a meditation retreat in Oxford, England. That Deepak Chopra was hosting. I wasn't really familiar with him at all at the time. And I figured, well, this is a chance for me to reconnect with my meditation practice. And there were supposed to be like 3,000 people there, and there were, 50, because no one was flying after 9/11. And so it was pretty special. And we meditated for like, 8 hours a day. And by the third day, I suddenly realized that this giant weight had been lifted off my chest, that there was this, for the first time in maybe 20 years, I was experiencing joy. And that was just an amazing concept to me. And so after that ended, I headed off to India on my own little eat, pray, love journey without the eating and the love. And really just was in search of the guru. And I searched high and low, for the guru. I went up to the Himalayas to see His Holiness the Dalai Lama, but he wasn't there. So then I headed down south, and I did all the stuff. I meditated every morning and practiced yoga every morning and bathed in the Ganges and prayed and went to see, all these clairvoyants and teachers and visited all the temples. And really it was a profound journey for me of about 5.5 months. And towards the end of this, when I had about 2 weeks left on my 6-month visa, I was laying in a hammock in a cashew forest in Kerala, southern India, and I was reading the Bhagavad Gita, this ancient Indian text. And I'd maybe read this verse hundreds of times, but that verse was Yogastha Kuru Karmani. This is when, the hero of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna, he's conflicted. He finds his life at a crossroads. He doesn't know what he should do. He's really lost, sort of just like how I was at the time, and maybe a lot of our viewers are today, lost. And he's talking to God. The Bhagavad Gita is this conversation between Arjuna and Krishna and God, trying to figure out, like, how am I supposed to live my life? And so he says, how am I supposed to walk through the world? What am I supposed to do to recover my dharma, my purpose, my meaning in life? And Krishna responds to him, Yoga Kuru Karmani. Establish yourself in the present moment and then perform action. And so that was like this amazing aha moment for me. I suddenly realized that's how I'm supposed to live my life. First get still and then take action. First get still and then be brave. And so it was, barking on the truth, obviously. So I came back home, and a friend of mine, said to me, all you do now is sit around and meditate. And I said, I know, isn't that beautiful? And he was like, if you really want to elevate, this practice, you should get certified as a teacher. And I was like, well, I'm really not looking to teach. I'm really not looking to share. But I would like to learn more deeply about meditation, about how I can make my life better. So I headed out to California. I was living, in New York at the time. Headed out to California and went to a workshop to get, as part of my certification journey. And Deepak Chopra and David Simon, his partner for the past 20 years, they were there. And it was sort of like a love connection. We fell in love with each other at that workshop, and I never left. And I stayed there. They asked me if I would, run the Chopra Center. And I was like, that was like a dream job. And so I was like, yeah, I would do that. And would you guys share with me stuff that as we go through the journey? So I began this 10-year apprenticeship where I was studying the Gita and the ancient teachings and meditation and yoga and Ayurveda. And ultimately, I became the lead educator there. And then I became the dean of the university there. And in 2012, I sort of left the nest and left that world and went on my own journey to share meditation with the world. So other people, when they find themselves lost or at that crossroads, they have a toolkit that they can then step into their power and own their impact. And I traveled, to schools and hospitals and worked with Dutch special forces and the military and worked in the corporate world and created my own teacher training, of which you and I have spent, a beautiful journey on that. And, at this point, I've had the the privilege to certify thousands of teachers in meditation, um, and that's my passion, and that's where I am now.
And you are such a loving teacher and so supportive. I love it. And I love your story. Tell us about your name. The,
Well, after I've been at the Chopra Center for probably just I don't know, maybe 6 weeks, I came into to work one day, and Deepak and David Simon were sitting in my office, and I figured, oh, what's going on here? And they said, this is a little bit of an intervention. David Simon, every time someone says David, he whips his head around, and that's your name. So people are calling you, but it's a little disconcerting. So we're going to change your name. We're going to give you a spiritual name, and that name is going to be David G. And Davidji. And I was like, what's the deal with that? What does that mean? Um, and they said, well, David is your given name, and Ji means beloved. So we'll call you, beloved David. And I said, oh, that's so cool because my mother named me David because in the Bible that means beloved. So I'm sort of like beloved, beloved.
double beloved.
After a while, it felt weird to have like a capital D. I know that maybe it's not weird to anybody else, but I didn't want to be perceived as the beloved. So I changed my everything to lowercase, small d. So beloved squared, and that's I've kept that name. That's I don't know, it's 17 years later, and that's who I am. That's
That's who
my
you are.
handle.
I totally love it. I love it. And okay, so the world is so different right now, of course, as and I don't want to spend too much time on that, but I spend some time out in the world. I usually don't. I usually stay here alone on my mountain, unaffected by anything that's going on out there. But I spent about a week out, traveling and visiting family and friends, those who felt safe enough to, come out and be around people. But everywhere you go, there's a feeling of fear and a feeling of unusual stress, unusual tension, unusual uncertainty. And I know that if we could get people to meditate, we could get them to feel better. Now, and I think feeling better is the first step in fixing all the things that are going wrong in the world. But everything that I teach is about how we don't have to wait to be happy until circumstances line up. And so we don't have to wait to be serene and peaceful and fearless and comfortable until the world straightens out. So how can we teach people that tell us how meditation will help with that?
Well, that's a really important aspect of these ancient teachings that I've been immersed in and that I've shared over the years. And I think that they're not like specific to one culture. That's really why I wrote the book Sacred Powers, because virtually every culture has some aspect going back 75,000 years to the core of Africa, which is where pretty much so much civilization on the planet has stemmed from. But whether that's Native American, Native Americans in the U.S., First Nation people in Canada, um, Middle Easterners going back to ancient Babylonia and to ancient Egypt, the Indian subcontinent, ancient China. They all, have these very, very deep teachings rooted in um, getting still. The concept of oneness, the concept of awareness, the concept of rebirth, the concept of infinite flow, the concept of inner fire. These things, they're embedded in every single culture, which means actually they're universal principles. They've been going on since before we walk this planet, and then suddenly, as we start to live here. So there are tools that have been taught for tens of thousands of years to help people to connect to the thing that matters. And the thing that matters, and whether you're a believer in the soul or spirit or any of that stuff, the thing that matters is that there's something beneath this flesh casing. There's something beneath all of our emotions. And, these teachings demonstrate to us that we can choose to live life on one of two planes, either object referred, which is where everything outside of us is the answer to our happiness, whether that's a new house, a new car, a new relationship, getting Wi-Fi, getting your Wi-Fi to work after it's been shut off. You pick all those things outside of us that we have no control over, and we're waiting for those external things to make us happy. And the other way to live life is self-referred, where the source of happiness actually comes from within. Where the source of everything comes from within. So, it's often been said, happiness is a choice. And in fact, so much of what we do as we walk through the world is a choice. Some of us have bigger choices, some of us have fewer choices, but we are individuals of free will. And so we get to choose, is this where I want to be in this moment? Is this the thought that I want to have in this moment? Do I want to take it down a rabbit hole and devolve and wallow in my sadness? We get to choose that. Do I want to see like what else is there? Is there a silver lining? Is there something better that I can do? And so we suddenly start to realize that every single moment is a choice, and every single moment we get to, essentially choose ourselves. And we're all pretty dysfunctional. We all grew up with lots of uncertainty in our lives. Yeah, there was certain certainty. These people were our parents or our caregivers. This is the place where I lived. Here's the place that I went to school. Here's how my world sort of kind of looks. But there's always been uncertainty, and it's just in different ways. So when the pandemic suddenly awakened, sort of, who knows when that was, maybe January, maybe December, of last year. But as suddenly it became this thing, so many people got caught off guard in terms of this particular uncertainty. And like, am I going to die? What happens to my life? Am I going to get fired? Will my business shut down? What will the world look like? So it's not that there wasn't always uncertainty. There was just like a new flavor of uncertainty. And suddenly that allows us to sort of put into perspective all the other things, that we, will I be loved? Will people be nice to me? Will I be able to thrive? Can I move from victim to survivor to thriver? So many different types of things. And if we can say, well, all that stuff is still external. COVID is external. How we respond to it is internal. So I know people who are curled up in fetal positions, and they've been that way for going on 8 months now. And I know people who have pivoted, reinvented themselves, rebranded themselves, leaned in harder, nurtured themselves, taken care of themselves. We all were praying for this. Everybody, for the last, who knows, 20 years has been saying, oh, I wish I had more time. I wish all this pollution would slow down. I wish there'd be fewer cars. I wish there were fewer people. I wish I could take 2 weeks off of work and no one would get on my case. I wish I could just sit at home on the couch and do nothing. And suddenly, boop, here it is. And so not exactly as we anticipated, but, we have pleaded and begged and prayed for a period like this. So we have an opportunity here. This is the thing we've been hoping for. And so we have the choice, what are we going to do with that period? And so I would recommend that people certainly cultivate a meditation practice, because people ask me all the time if they should quit their job or leave this person that they're in a relationship with, or like what they should do. And honestly, I don't know what they should do, but I can get them to a place of clarity where they can make the best decision. And I think, I didn't invent meditation. I'm just a translator of it. And so that's really, everyone has the opportunity. Everyone has the opportunity to truly, in any moment, introduce a break in the action, even if that's just taking a long, slow, deep breath in And I think that's the key. People think meditation is so hard, but how about just starting by taking a deep breath whenever you feel overwhelmed, a deep breath whenever you feel a little anxious, a deep breath in so many different ways, you know. Um, and I think that's, you almost have to give yourself permission to do that. And I know people now who've like an alarm on their phone that every hour, just for like 30 seconds, they just stop, close their eyes and breathe. And then come back. We know even such little subtle different shifts in our behavior can make such a powerful and important difference.
Okay, so physiologically, I love how you describe the what happens in your body with the fight or flight response and how being in that all the time is the saber-toothed tiger story.
Yeah, well, I think it, and the reason I like to share that aspect is because people say, well, what are the benefits of meditation? And I think it's important to understand the other side of that before we even get to what are the benefits of meditation. So pretty much you and I and all people walking on the planet and most animals
Mhm.
are hardwired with a self-preservation mechanism known as fight flight. It's meant to save our lives. We live in a harsh world and forget our modern culture or the industrial age, but 10,000 years ago, we were living in villages where there were scary things outside of us, maybe other villages of people who were, wanted to go to war with us, or animals that were, attacking us. So we are hardwired with this mechanism that the moment our autonomic nervous system, so this isn't actually an intellectual awakening. This is something that happens at the hormonal and chemical level based on a neurological spark. So the moment that we sense a threat to the physiology, the moment that we sense, oh, this thing could be hurt, my physical body could be attacked and killed. Um, in under 5 seconds, this process unfolds really in rapid fire. And so the first thing that we start to do is perspire. And it's not to make us more slippery to escape, the saber-toothed tiger or the threat that we hear out there. And that's the thing. You don't even have to like see someone like running at you, with a machete. You can just suddenly hear a sound of something. And 10,000 years ago, you would hear the sound of a saber-toothed tiger or a lion, roaring, or something that would be like, uh-oh, I'm gonna have to save myself right here. This could threaten my existence. I'm in mortal danger. And so first we start to perspire because the mind body knows that we're about to overheat, either fighting this threat or running away from it. So the first thing we do is perspire. So that's like really interesting that like that's the first thing. And we experience that if we're driving, really fast and someone cuts us off. Same exact thing. Suddenly we sense a threat to the physiology. First thing that happens is like poof, you instantly start to sweat from that before anything else happens. But right after that, within like a quarter second after you start to perspire, then you start to breathe more rapidly and shallowly. And that's to get the blood flowing through you. And in fact, the blood moves to your extremities, to your legs, so that you can run away if you choose to, and to your arms so that you can fight. So you're really getting like prepared to fight or flee. Then what happens is once your heart is really racing because your breath has made it race, suddenly your body says, let's suppress everything that's not critical right now. So, instantly, one of like the few things that are gifts that we have, such as, cellular development. Your autonomic nervous system says we really don't need to be thinking right now about cellular development. We don't need to be thinking about, making sure your hair is lustrous and making sure your nails are hard. In fact, let's shut down that entire operation of cellular development. So that gets shut down. I mean, it's pretty intense, So your autonomic nervous system just goes, shut that down. Um, Then your autonomic nervous system says, what else is here that's sort of extraneous, that's not needed right now? And so one of the most important aspects, of course, are your sex hormones. So procreation is really important to the species, but it's distinctly not important when you're just trying to save your life right now. So essentially your reproductive system also gets suppressed. And then your immune system, because your autonomic nervous system said, you could be dead in just a couple of minutes here. We don't need to be fighting germs. Let's shut that down too. So suddenly, that gets suppressed. And once all your non-essential functions are suppressed, then your autonomic nervous system says, okay, now let's surge whatever we need to fight this threat or run away. And then adrenaline, cortisol, and glucagon come surging into your bloodstream, and you're ready now to fight or run away. But the coolest thing is the last thing that happens. The hard parts of your blood, the platelets that flow through the plasma, become plump and sticky. You actually start clotting before you get cut, because we're hardwired that in the past physical threats were probably going to cut us, if certainly it was fighting an animal or fighting a warring tribe. And so we start to, our blood thickens, and then we're ready. But fast forward 10,000, 20,000 years, we're really not in mortal danger on a consistent basis. In fact, unless you are in the military or search and rescue or in a war zone, or some type of, or policing, on a daily basis, we're never in mortal danger. We're not facing that. Even the threat of COVID, it's a threat of COVID. If you isolate or don't interact with people, nothing's going to happen to you. And so we have sort of like the modern version of this. We've evolved as well. As saber-toothed tigers became extinct, suddenly we've evolved that exact same fight-flight process to an emotional process. So now it's not when someone threatens your physical body, it's when you sense a threat to your ego. It's when someone challenges you, when someone barks at you, or yells at you, when someone challenges something that you think you own. And that can be a belief system, that could be your house, your city, your team, your religion, a project that you just worked on, an outfit that you're wearing that you thought was great, and someone says, really? It can be as simple as something like that. So throughout the day, that's happening like 20 times a day, that we are, experiencing our needs not being met. And that's really the definition of stress that I like to use. Stress is how you respond when your needs are not met. So when we were talking about these things, all these things external to us, suddenly we start to realize, like, wow, there's like a lot of times during the course of the day where my needs are not met, and I have a choice in how I want to respond to that. So how we respond becomes the fabric of our life. So we know the same thing is happening. Someone pushes your button, and those same processes happen. You either hold your breath, or you start to breathe more shallowly. You start to perspire. You suppress your sex hormone, your growth hormone, and your immune system. You elevate adrenaline, cortisol, and glucagon. Glucagon is sort of like, when it surges into, it's like eating 5 Snickers bars at once. And so suddenly our platelets are getting thicker, and like all this stuff is happening. And we could just like sitting at a dining room table, and someone said something that pushed our button. And so this is how we are wired to walk through the world. And if we're having this experience 20 times a day, at least 20 times a day, when our needs are not met, there's a state that we can awaken to as well. And that's the state of restful awareness or restful alertness. And we get that through meditating. And when we meditate, we cultivate that state. And like, why would we care about that? Well, because the state of restful awareness is almost exactly the opposite of fight flight. So in restful awareness, we don't perspire. Our perspiration level comes down. We actually feel a little more relaxed and cooler. We don't breathe shallowly and rapidly. We breathe more deeply and our breaths are longer. Our heart doesn't race, our heart slows down, and our blood pressure slows down. Um, those hormones and chemicals that get suppressed in fight flight actually get elevated. So our growth hormone elevates, our sex hormone elevates, our immune system is boosted, and adrenaline, cortisol, and glucagon are suppressed. And the platelets that run through the plasma flowing through our body, they don't get plump and sticky, they get thinner and more fluid.
Yes, that's right.
So when we can cultivate that on a consistent basis, then it's like the antidote to stress. It's the antidote to all those ways that we would otherwise react in the world. And the next time someone pushes your button, you don't even realize that they're pushing your button. You're like, were you trying to push my button? I didn't even feel that. Um, and that's because we don't feel it emotionally, and we don't feel it hormonally and chemically. And suddenly there's this new tool. So that's, if you just want to look at this on a physiological basis that ultimately leads into an emotional basis, forget spirituality in any way, um, this practice can save our lives. Like, what do we need now in the era of COVID? We need something that's going to help us not spin out, help us boost our immune systems, help us be stronger, against something that we don't even know, really what it is. And so that's why I think, meditation has so many physical, emotional, spiritual, mental benefits that can help us de-escalate situations, which is why I like working with cops, because, teaching them these techniques, you know, what are all the reasons for all these cops, shooting, young black men? It's it's because everything's escalating. So imagine, a world where their first thought was to de-escalate rather than escalate, no matter what their implicit bias would be. But if they can live their lives um, knowing that there's another gear that they can choose in that moment, and each of us has that same opportunity. Each of us has the ability to choose another gear. And that can, realistically, that can change our lives. That can change every single aspect of who we are and how we walk through the world. And I think just having that sort of like in your back pocket, um, as an important tool to help you um, walk through the world with greater grace and greater ease. I think that's what we all want. We're all just looking for more happiness and more love. We're all just looking to feel better about ourselves and about the world. And this is like a really powerful platform for doing that.
Right. Okay, so you recommend 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes at night. So explain to us how meditating at 6 in the morning is going to help me with facing down my boss at noon.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's really important. And again, I don't want to scare people away. So yes, that's the ideal amount that we should aspire to, but this is an aspirational. If we can just meditate for 5 minutes to start our day and end it with 5 minutes and then add a minute, every month, to that, this is a long-term practice.
Right.
So we ultimately can really be in that space. But I think one of the most powerful and important things that we can do on a consistent basis, there's two ways to view meditation. In the moment, de-stressifying, in the moment, stress hacks. Someone says something and we suddenly have like a tool to suddenly breathe and not respond in a way that's not necessarily our best version. And the other thing is to proactively create a practice. Proactively, build something up so that instead of being a crisis meditator, there are fewer crises, out there. So one of the most important things that I do recommend is to start your day with meditation. And I think if we can just start our day by connecting to stillness and silence and receiving and awakening all those physiological benefits that I was just talking about, we then have like a little bit of stillness and silence resting inside us. And that little bit of stillness and silence, as absurd as this may be, but that little piece of stillness and silence, and maybe it's a thimbleful of stillness and silence, suddenly, that's the trajectory of our day. And so that's our starting point. That's the platform. That's the blueprint. That's the foundation for everything that follows it. So, yes, you're suddenly having this interaction with your boss, but you've got a little piece of stillness and silence. Now, imagine if you did that every single day to start your day and end your day. At a certain point, after just like a few weeks and after a few months, you can imagine, you know, you don't have those harsh interactions with your boss or with anyone.
Right?
You don't get twisted up when people say things that aren't to your liking. You don't live this knee jerk reaction life that every time someone says something, um, if it doesn't serve you, you get upset. And the same thing as things outside of you. You know, life is full of peaks and valleys, and every single day is filled with peaks and valleys. And sometimes we find ourselves in a lot more valleys than peaks. But if we can, again, see them with greater clarity, then we can make decisions that will see them as opportunities. And we can actually like turn a challenge into a potential win. And maybe we're not so harsh with ourselves. Maybe we're a little kinder to ourselves. And so these are gentle, this is a gentle practice. And so it's all about, how kind can I be? How sweet can I be to me, so that I'm in a better space. We talk about people having compassion. I have so much compassion for this group of people or for that person or for this situation. Well, there's self-compassion is the is the most important aspect of that. And we need to start with self-kindness, self-compassion, look at that, sweetheart, self-forgiveness, and self-love.
So I love how you put this, and I want to add to this. So it's like you're, if you start your morning with meditation, it's like you're filling your tank up with with kindness, with peace, with calm, with serenity, and you have that to draw on all day. And
Right. Right.
yeah,
It's like making a deposit in your bank,
yeah,
as soon as you wake up.
huh?
And then you can access it throughout the course of the day. And as long as you know, well, it's okay. I'm making a deposit this afternoon as well and tomorrow morning. Um, and that's why, for me, rules are not how you get people to really meditate. I think people like structure, but most people don't like rigidity. And I don't want to ever feel like I'm, part of a cult, or have to be forced to do this or do that.
Right.
So this is, that's why I find such joy in sharing these teachings with so many different types of people, because everyone can benefit from a present moment practice.
Mhm. And that's what, I've discovered is words don't teach. But if people will try this and, start to develop their own meditation practice, and yeah, this is a giant cat. Um,
What's that cat's name?
his name is Romeo.
Romeo.
Uh-huh. Hello, buddy. Um, when that this is what happened when I first met you, and this you taught me to when hook my meditation to something that I do anyway, like feeding my cat, or and start with 5 minutes. And but it wasn't very long before I started noticing how much more in charge I was of my own thoughts, and how I got to be the boss of what I was thinking instead of just reacting. And then once you have that proof, then it's not like something you have to do. It's like, I can't wait to do this. I can't wait to get better at this, and watch my life get better and watch my days get better.
Yeah, I think that's a really important aspect of it. If we can ritualize it, when you can add meaning to ritual, that equals transformation. Otherwise, we have rituals for making coffee, making tea, getting dressed, doing whatever. But if we can hook this, if we can hook our morning practice, push it to the very, very front of our morning ablution rituals, then we're not thinking about it as a chore. We're not thinking about, like, just like we don't think about going to the bathroom as a chore, or brushing our teeth, or taking a shower, or getting dressed, or making ourselves coffee. We never see that as a chore. And so that can be one of the most powerful understandings, that, like, um, this is a gift. It's not a chore. And it's just something that I do. And so, that's what I've managed to do over the years. I don't even think about, like, oh, I have to wake up and do nothing now. I have to wake up and meditate. It's just, I just do that. I just do that thing. And then there's just a little bit more stillness and silence that flows through, every conversation, every interaction, every thought that comes into my awareness.
That's awesome. Awesome, awesome. Okay, so also at meditation teacher training, we did some very fun rituals like writing down something that we wanted to be rid of. And we didn't literally throw it into the ocean because that would be littering, but we threw a rock that was a representation of talk about that ritual, or give us a couple of other of your favorite rituals to help you feel like you're in charge of your day.
Yeah, well, I'm big on ritual. And I think, there's a lot of stuff that we have absorbed since we were kids that actually doesn't serve us. Maybe it did at a certain period of time, but it doesn't necessarily serve us now. So there's a lot of uh, baggage, for lack of a better word, belief systems, limiting beliefs. There's a lot of stuff that we, hold on to and have held on to very effectively, through our teens, through our 20s, our 30s, and beyond. And so I believe that, as Aristotle said, nature abhors a vacuum. So if we can create a ritual for releasing that stuff, then we can have a space that can be filled with other things that we would choose that are more relevant and effective at this moment in our life. And so that's so number one is having that second meditation of the day. I've said the importance of, I call them the bookends of the day. So there's the importance for like starting your day with just a little stillness and silence, starting your day by setting an intention, starting your day with a gratitude practice. These are all parts of my morning ritual. Um, and then there's that second meditation of the day, somewhere between 2 and 6, where we can sort of let go of something that we might have absorbed or taken on from the moment we wake up till that moment. Maybe we took something personally. Maybe we read something and it really bothered us. Maybe we got a little overdramatic about something. Maybe we beat ourselves up. So this would be that time, you know. So if the first meditation of the day is the one that sets the table, the second meditation of the day is the one that washes the dishes. So you would never confuse those two. We
Right.
set the table, then we eat the meal, and then we wash the dishes. If you never washed your dishes, then ultimately you'd have to move. You'd be like stepping over plates that would be unwashed everywhere, and then ultimately, like, I got to get out of here. So that's the same thing for us. We absorb. We have 60,000 to 80,000 thoughts a day. Add to that all the experiences that we encounter over the course of the day, and layer over that all the interactions that we have with people, whether it's digital or in person. It's a lot. And so we need a release valve. We need I'm not going to take that personally. I don't want to hold on to that energy, because that's normally what we've been doing. We have a bad day. Someone cuts us off at like 8 o'clock in the morning on the highway, and at like 6 o'clock at night, that's dinner conversation. You wouldn't believe what happened to me, 10 hours ago. And it's absurd. If you think about that, that is absurd that we would hold on to something really not relevant. And then, of course, there's the concept of emotional leakage. So we like got pissed off at 8 o'clock, and we were like annoying to be around throughout the entire day, just because someone cut us off. That we could have said to ourselves, "Oh, you know what? I probably cut people off too," and like let it go. But instead, no, we like held on tighter and tighter and tighter. So that second meditation of the day, whether it was a comment that you received, whether it was something that you read, whether it was something that you took personally, that's our opportunity for like a release meditation. So that's why I think the rituals are really, really clear. We start our day by setting intentions. We end our day by letting go with what no longer serves us. So that's like the first ritual that we can do on a daily basis, even using the simple mantra, let go. As you breathe in, silently repeat, let And as you breathe out, silently repeat, go. And just do that for 5 minutes. It's amazing. You think, oh, how powerful could that be? Well, since you never did it before, it can be transformational, life-changing. So that brings us to like, let me share one additional benefit. Typically, if you hold on to something and then you bring it into dinner time, and then you're going to bring it into post-dinner time, then you're going to bring it into your evening time, then you're going to bring it into your bedtime, and then you're going to bring it into your bed, and then you're going to bring it into your sleep, and then you're going to bring it into your dreams, and you wake up the next morning, and that's a part of, ultimately it becomes toxic emotional plaque if you do that every single day for 10 years. But as you even just doing a 5-minute letting go or release meditation, you start to let go of the stuff that you took so seriously that day. And as you continue to do that, you start letting go of stuff you held on to yesterday and the day before and the week before and the month before. And you start really clearing out your emotional closet. And then suddenly this becomes like one of the most powerful and beautiful aspects of your life. And so I'm big on that ritual. But, the ritual that we performed was we got very, very still, to start the process, because this is not when you're in emotional pain or something's been sitting in your heart for 20 years, it's not an intellectual conversation. It actually needs to be a heart-based conversation. So we spent about 45 minutes getting really, really still, through a chakra tuning, through a process to really, yoga nidra, full on surrender. And then we wrote down 3 limiting beliefs that we have, 3 things that we think were holding us back. And then we crumpled that paper up, we held it to our heart, all right, and then we picked up a rock. Just a simple neutral rock. In that moment, it was neutral. And then we held the rock to our heart, and we allowed the emotional charge that's in our heart to move into the rock. We actually would, allow my psychic pain, my emotional turbulence to move from my heart into this rock. And so with our paper of, our heart filled with grievances moving into the rock, and our paper, written down with blockages, we walked to the edge of the water. And then we threw that rock, which was now filled. Ideally, we were transferring the emotional pain that was in our heart, that emotional charge, into the rock, and threw that into the ocean. And you might say, oh no, now you're just like polluting the ocean with these toxic emotions. It's like, check it out. The ocean is big. The ocean can handle it. We can't. We're the ones with the limitations. The ocean can, just like the earth. People say we're going to kill the planet. We're not going to kill the planet. We're going to kill ourselves. The planet's going to be here. The planet's going to do just fine. We will have polluted it and destroyed it in so many different ways. But at a certain point, our lives will become unsustainable. And the moment we vanish, within like a week, just like what happened with the first month of COVID. Suddenly, no smoke belching into the air. Suddenly, all those cars not on the road. The factories shut down. Like all this pollution that was just, they were even saying like in Venice, the canals were clear for the first time in like 100 years. So we know that the ocean can handle it. Sweet Mama O can handle it all. So we throw our rocks into the ocean that are emotionally charged, pulling, that emotional charge out of our heart. And then we made a bonfire, and then we surrounded that flame, and took that piece of paper, which now had our limiting beliefs inside it, and one by one we ritualistically went into drop that into the fire, as we chanted the Sanskrit phrase Agni Mile Purohitam, which means I surrender to the fire of transformation. So taking that whole ritualized process, suddenly there's an opening here. And it's, again, what do you want to fill it with? So, of course, we filled it with chocolate, as you need to do after something sweet, chocolate and strawberries. But anyone can do that. And you don't have to like live near the ocean.
Yep.
You can find some pond in a park, near you or something along those lines. And you don't need a bonfire because, where I live, California, it's like wildfires all over the place. So, but you can just, put it in a pot, light it, and put it in a pot in your, in your kitchen. So there's so many ways that we can, you know, do this ritual. But if we do this, somewhat on a consistent basis, we're giving ourselves this space. And then we invite new intentions.
Right.
We invite new belief systems in. We invite new pathways in, and there's space for them.
Yeah. And so all about doing things on purpose, being purposeful about choosing our emotional health and choosing our spiritual health and choosing our connection and all that. Okay, so I almost forgot that I wanted to very selfishly, because this is my new interest, I wanted to talk with you about moon cycles. Or I want you to share with us about moon cycles and how we can, have fun increasing our connection and our state of mind and things like that according to the moon.
Yeah, well, when it comes to the moon, it's something that we could be paying more attention to it. Oftentimes we just go like, yeah, new moon, oh yeah, full moon. And so probably for about 15 years, I have, you know, I'm not a woman, and I did not have a period growing up. I grew up in a household of women, so I was aware of everyone's cycles, and I was, aware of the ebb and flow. And of course, we know that our bodies, specifically women, are so linked to the lunar cycle, so linked to that 28.3 day cycle. And every 6 hours, we move from high tide to low tide. And every 15 days, or every 14.15 days, we move through this cycle, of flowing from full to new. We've been going back and forth in that. And so right now we're in the halo of a full moon. We just had a full moon. And the full moon, if you think of it, think of like, well, when it's a new moon, it's like empty. So the new moon is that, we fill it up. We pour our intentions into that. We get really, really, deep into that. It's empty, so it can be filled with anything. It's sort of like, our hearts at the end of the day, after we've released everything, there's an openness there to put in new things. And so, same thing with the moon. So the full moon is at its fullest. So we wouldn't call that the manifestation moon, because that's the new moon, which is the manifestation moon, that we pour all our intentions and desires into and make new commitments and dedicate ourselves to new things. The full moon, I like to refer to as the pruning moon. This is where, no differently than if we had like this giant garden where trees had grown or bushes had grown, we would come and say, well, they'll grow better if we can just prune off the stuff that's not necessarily serving this. So the full moon is actually that opportunity where we can let go of some stuff that's not necessarily serving us. And so it gives us that chance to not choose new, but figure out what are directions that I'm going that really aren't serving me. What projects have really just turned out to be a distraction? What behaviors of mine aren't necessarily serving, I may have been doing them for 20 years, but they're not really serving me right now. So the beauty of the full moon is we can look at our lives in terms of that snapshot, what's going on today, past few days, past week, past month, past year. And this allows us to sort of like prune everything away that isn't necessarily serving us, so that new shoots can grow, new sprouts can grow. So we're sort of like these celestial gardeners, for lack of a better term. We're taking our cue from the moon in terms of, when's the best time to be doing this. And so the beauty of a full moon is that, you're in such, the moon has no light of its own. The moon is only lit by the sun. Earth, we've got a lot of light going on here that's man-made. But realistically, it's the sun that lights everything. So when the moon is full And the moon is all divine feminine energy. And it's being fueled by the sun, full on, which is all divine masculine energy, like Shiva, Shakti energy. So in the full moon, there's total balance. So we get to like witness this reflection of that energy coming into the moon and then bouncing, onto us, that we're like so seeing that moon. And it's a powerful balancing aspect as well, emotionally balancing, physically balancing. And so that's, full moons give us a chance to sort of like recenter ourselves, reground ourselves, get into that place where if we were like being pulled over to like either shed that, or refine it, or rebirth it. So I'm like, we're still in the halo. Typically they say the energetic halo of any moon, full moon, new moon, anything along those lines, is like 72 hours. But the reality is, it's more about your awareness that makes that impact. So I would encourage everyone, just pay a little attention. The next, we'll have a new moon soon, and when that new moon comes, that would be the moment to really, plant all your seeds. And when the next full moon comes, that would be the moment to sort of prune away what's grown so that you can have greater growth.
So when does harvest come in this cycle?
Well, that's exactly it. We're harvesting. That whole pruning is, we're reaping the benefits of the things we've planted.
Okay.
And that's why this harvest moon, that's why, they call it the harvest moon, because, they call it a harvest moon because by the light of the moon you would harvest, and almost like day. But we are, this is not the planter moon, it's the harvest moon. So we're really, taking stock. And so you could, again, ritualize this in so many ways, with a gratitude practice, with taking stock of what has unfolded, the steps that you've taken through this period of time. We can really start to move through this and see that our lives are so much in the flow of the exact same thing. Certainly women, women are feeling it biologically, and physiologically. But this should be sort of like a cue that we can also view it on an emotional, and like, where's my attention? What am I putting my attention on in my life? Where's my agenda? What am I leaning hard into? Should I lean harder? Should I back off? What areas do I not have attention in? And should I, put a little bit more attention on those? So this is, I call the full moon also like the awareness moon. Because this is our opportunity to really take stock, see the big picture of all things, and take a deep breath in and, harvest and prune. And then, we don't have to do anything after that. That's the beauty of this. No differently than when you plant something in your garden.
Right.
You plant it, and if you nourish it, then the seeds grow, and then they grow into the thing that you wanted them to. You have no control over that.
Right.
And that's why we have to be detached from outcome as well. But then when those trees grow to a certain amount, then you say, okay, let me prune this a little bit so it can be a little stronger. When we prune the branches, more energy goes into the roots.
That's awesome.
And so that's what we want. We're pruning and passing a little more energy into our roots.
Okay, well, I knew that that I was going to have to watch the clock because I could talk to you all day. But is there anything that you want to add before we go? Anything that must be said?
Yeah, well, I do want to say that, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to hang out with you this morning. And, we transform the world by transforming ourselves. So we've got an opportunity here to really have like a huge impact on the world around us, depending on what we care about, what's important to us. And we should not look so much externally to change that thing. We need to look inside and elevate what's inside of us. Highest vibration always wins. So if we can just keep raising our vibration, then the vibration, right, the really close one will start to shift, and then a little bit further out, and then a little bit further out. And that's how we shift the world. If we have a low vibration and we're pointing at something that we don't like, probably not going to be able to affect change in the way that we want. So I would leave everyone with meditate, meditate, meditate. And of course, I've recorded over 1,000 free guided meditations that are available for people. But I would also stress to people, don't meditate in a crisis. See if you can launch those bookends of your day. And even if it's like start your day with 5 minutes and end your day with 5 minutes. And then maybe, add a minute to that every so often. And then ultimately you'll have an amazing practice. And you should also, check out Lauren, because she can teach you how to meditate, wherever you are. So,
oh, it's fantastic. So yeah, like you said, he has thousands of free meditations. He has programs launching all the time. Um, I highly recommend that even if you don't want to be a meditation teacher, go learn to be one, because it was an experience like no other. So you can find all of that at davidji.com. I'm so honored that you were here with me. We're going to be back here next week with another great guest that I don't know who it's going to be yet. But in the meantime, remember that happiness is a choice, and you can always choose to be happy first. Bye, David G.
bye-bye. Thank you so much.